News yesterday that the United States is sending an advanced anti-missile system to Israel, along with American troops to operate it. Well, that says it's clear America's taking a more direct approach in the Middle East. Now, I've got no problems with this. I wish our government was stronger too in its support of Israel. But ultimately, it'll have massive ramifications, not just for the Middle East, but the whole geopolitical landscape, which is becoming more fraught by the day, particularly our region. Joining me now, Sky News contributor Chris Uhlmann. Chris, we'll get to the broader implications in a moment on all of this, but the US deploying troops into this region, particularly given things with Iran are less of a fight now via proxies, far more direct between the two countries. Give us your sense of how things are going to play out.
Well, Peter, the United States is now actively involved in another war in the Middle East. It has 2 aircraft carriers there. It's got a nuclear submarine there. It was already engaged in the defence of Israel the last time Iran sent missiles in that direction. Israel can't defend itself without the United States. Now we've got a THAAD missile system. There are 100 boots on the ground, and Israel is preparing to attack Iran again. It's doing this while it still hasn't finished the job in Gaza because Hamas has not been destroyed yet. The hostages aren't back. It's now starting a fight on the northern front with Hezbollah into Lebanon, and it means to settle a score with Iran and must be thinking about striking the Iranian nuclear facilities. So I think that this is a moment of great danger for the world, that this war could escalate well beyond a regional war into a much wider one.
Mm. We know there's been tensions between President Biden and Prime Minister Netanyahu. We're less than a month away from the US election. Of course, Biden will stay as president until the January 20 date for the inauguration. But how's this playing out amongst an election campaign as well, given the tensions that are there between the two major parties?
Yeah, I think the United States is distracted and overstretched. Let's face it, Ukraine also wants systems from the United States. The United States is supplying those systems, and the Biden administration has been good on those fronts. But don't forget, they had to scrounge around the world in order to get enough artillery shells to supply the war in Ukraine. Now, Israel is stretching the United States, and around the world, Peter, we can see all the signs that US adversaries are actually on the move. So the tempo of war games between Beijing and Russia has stepped up in the last half year. Their fighter jets did a flyby together, the Chinese and Russians, by Alaskan airspace back in July. There are North Korean troops apparently now on the ground in Russia waiting to join the fight. The Chinese are now supplying lethal aid to the Russians. That's certainly the suspicion of the United States. Iran is supplying drones, and Russia is helping Iran with its nuclear program. So what part of that doesn't look like an absolute witch's cocktail as to where the world might be heading? And don't forget, Xi Jinping has talked about changes unseen in a century. And last week, Vladimir Putin met with the Iranian president, and in a speech that he gave in Turkmenistan, talked about the fact that there was a new world order emerging. I think we start to add all these things up, and it paints a very disturbing picture about what's happening with the world.
You know, and this is why I come back to Australia and I look at our forward acquisition plan. So much is on the long finger, so much is not even funded, not just in the forward estimates in the budget, but over the next 10 years, the funds aren't there, even in a fictional sense. You've got a weak Prime Minister. I think you've got a very distracted Deputy Prime Minister, Defence Minister. I mean, you've even got the Chief of Staff in his office who's locked out. He's in a cupboard down the corridor, still paying her a salary since about May this year. No one's really in charge. I mean, I don't think the world's been as fraught now. You have to probably go back to the 1930s. We're in witch's brew, you call it. I think it's a diabolical situation. And we've got the really big player here, China, on our doorstep.
Yeah, and on the week, just recently, as you would be aware, China again surrounded Taiwan. And essentially, that's what a blockade looks like. And at some stage, that blockade will probably last for quite some time. It is in a push and shove match with the Philippines over the shoals, the features there that China is trying to take, as it's trying to take most of the South China Sea. Australia should be looking to be in a position where it can actually work to defend itself without the United States. Now, we want the United States by our side. We want to be to make sure that that friendship and that alliance stands for a very long time. But I think at the moment, given the sort of circumstances the US is in, we should be looking to defend ourselves. We should be doing everything in our power to make sure that we have all the necessary equipment on our shore to defend ourselves if necessary.
You're not wrong, Chris Uhlmann. Thank you.